golfj.com.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Golf J podcast on FingerLakes1.tv. I'm Jim Sinacropi alongside Rhett Ticconi and Doug Brown inside the FingerLakes1.com studios on the third floor of the North Park building in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. It's Monday, August 28th. Tonight we'll be talking about the PGA Tour Playoffs. Dustin Johnson, Jordan Spieth square off for a great final round on Sunday. Now we move to Boston for a Labor Day weekend event, and got some guys changing putters. Want to talk about that. Steve Stricker is going to pick Phil Mickelson for the President's Cup, even though he hasn't been playing well. Lots of stuff to talk about here, especially after our week off last week. So let's get to it, fellas. Welcome back to the studio.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Now, I think that I think that we always wait for that big final round showdown between two of the big five or two of the big 4 or 5 guys, on the tour, and it never, ever happens. But it happened
finally
at the Northern Trust on Sunday, and it was everything you could have hoped for. Spieth starts out with a big lead. Johnson squares it up by the turn, and they battle it out and go to a playoff. Dustin Johnson gets his 16th victory and holds off Spieth, and the playoffs roll on. But it was great. I really enjoyed it.
Just what Rhett was asking for last week.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, yeah.
The old Mickelson Woods.
Yeah.
We got that a couple times, and Woods and VJ. Now we need these guys. We need Day and McIlroy or Johnson and Spieth like we had yesterday. Also, it was great that the top 10 leaderboard at the end of the day was really nice too, to see all the top guys coming out and doing what they should do.
No big surprises up there.
No,
overall,
but that's what you want, right? In these playoffs, you don't want the 150th guy in the world, necessarily in the top 5 at the end of the day when you're getting to the nitty gritty of this tournament next week and the week after.
And probably the two most intriguing individuals on the tour the last 3 or 4 years squared off in the final group too.
Yeah.
Jordan kind of squeaky clean as far as we know. Dustin had a couple issues. But Jordan dominated for a little while. Dustin kind of dominated for a little while. They both kind of slipped a little bit. I'm not sure if you could have had a better matchup of those final two because they separated themselves from the field. So I think it was good.
I think really, Jim, you probably agree that they kind of separated themselves from the field overall over the course of the last 2 years. We've talked about them more than anybody else probably. I know Jason Day's kind of snuck in there, and we always talk about Rory for some reason or another.
They've been the constants.
Yeah.
Well, they may have been battling for Player of the Year. The winner of that matchup may win Player of the Year.
Well,
sure.
If either one of them win one more, I would totally agree with you. They don't, of course, Jordan's got a major.
Yep.
But some others do as well. So, God, if Justin Thomas was to win one of these final 3, then he's got to be right up there top as well.
Yeah, so, he'd have 5 tournaments, wouldn't he?
Yeah, 5 wins in a major plus one of these things. So, or with one of these. But it's going to be an interesting final.
Also intriguing was the fact that Johnson, one of the longer hitters on the tour, and Spieth perceived as a shorter hitter. I don't necessarily know how true that is, seeing that he averaged 302.9 yards off the tee this weekend, which was 18th in the field. But contrast in styles. Sure. Spieth, the great putter, great iron play. DJ, one of the longest hitters on tour. And, watching the playoff, power overcame putting. I shouldn't say that, though, because Dustin Johnson had to make a tough putt to force the playoff. But then when he got to that tee on 18 and bombed it over the pond, right to the edge of the fairway, it just showed that, man, power sometimes can just give him a huge advantage from that point on in the playoff.
Now, why do you think he didn't play it that way on the regulation 18?
He said the wind shifted,
and
Spieth in retrospect said, I could have probably cut off that corner as well, but Spieth hit first in the playoff and hit a good drive, but he had a 6-iron or 7-iron in. Johnson, where he hit it, just had about a 90-yard wedge. So,
right. 9-day difference.
Big difference.
No doubt.
So Johnson and Spieth have been paired together 23 times, and with Johnson being 48 under par during those rounds, holding a slight edge over Spieth, who was 46 under in relation to par in those rounds. Spieth, though, has the head-to-head edge, shooting the lower score 12 times to Johnson's 9, but pretty equal matchup, and Johnson probably the underdog, especially to yesterday, especially since he was 5 strokes behind, or how many was it? 5 strokes heading into 3 strokes, 5 strokes, but he was behind heading into the round.
He got to 5 behind. I'm not sure if he started out 5 behind.
Yeah, Spieth with a couple birdies early before he made that double, and then I think he bogeyed 9 as well. But yeah, actually, you would have thought the way Spieth was playing, and the fact that Spieth does such a good job of closing out 54-hole leads, but wasn't meant to be yesterday. Dustin Johnson with a huge win. Huge win.
Totally agree. I think, you're going to hear the media talk about Jordan. Of course, going to go back to the Masters of last year. Didn't hold on to the 54-hole lead. We're going to hear that stuff come back up again. But it was a 72-hole event, and Dustin had the best score for 72 holes. I think it was good golf. If he makes a double bogey on Thursday, we don't talk about it tonight. Right, it happens on a Sunday in the final round,
right?
Or wherever the slip-ups were. But Dustin Johnson could hit that drive on Thursday on the 18th hole, and we don't talk about it. So, but you're right. When he's got a 60 or 70-yard shot, big advantage. Yeah. Right, about 100 and had to be 150 yards past him.
Yeah, it was
like
dogleg hole, so it wasn't naturally.
We're not only past him, but closer to the green by that much
closer,
more, right?
A lot closer.
So,
I think, like you said, with Spieth's driving ability, I think Dustin Johnson doesn't necessarily get enough credit for his short game either. I think when he's got a wedge in his hand, he can get that ball.
He's certainly
close.
Improved dramatically with the chipping and the putting, or the short game and the putting.
Yeah, I think it's made a difference in getting him over the hump to win that major. Yeah. Or not that the putting cost him at the One U.S. Open, but I think he's definitely dialed that in the last couple of years.
So you said Spieth finished 18th at 302 average.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what number 1 was?
Johnson averaged 314. He was second.
So much more then.
Yeah.
So then Jordan's only, let's say, worst case, 20 yards behind the first guy. Probably not that much.
Yeah.
15 to 18 yards.
Right.
That's not a big gap at that level.
Right.
That's an 8-iron to a 7-iron. That's not that big of a gap. I thought you were going to tell me that somebody with 352 or something like that, and a 50-yard gap would be huge.
Well, that's the thing. If you think of Jordan Spieth as a short hitter, but obviously he's not. Right. And watching the TrackMan numbers on, on CBS's coverage, the tee shot that Spieth hit in the playoffs carried 290.
Right.
So I mean, he can get it out there certainly.
Yeah. It'd be interesting. Like, what's 125? What's their average? 295. How much difference is it from 302?
It probably does cluster up.
Yeah.
So somebody at 280, they couldn't play on Wednesday nights with us, right? Is that what it amounts to?
That's what I mean. It's like from Spieth to the last guy has got to be 7, 8 yards, maybe 10 yards tops. You can't imagine any of those pros having to hit that big a difference between Dustin Johnson at 314,
right?
Somebody being at 280. I mean, it wouldn't work.
Yeah,
the courses are too big.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a tenth of a yard separates 10 people.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, 4 of the top 9 finishers at Glen Oaks started the week in the top 10 of the FedEx standings. Oddly, not all 4 moved up in the standings. The top 2, Johnson and Spieth, started at 4th and 3rd before moving to 1st and 2nd, respectively. Rahm tied for 3rd and went from 6th to 5th. But because of the 1-2 finish by Johnson and Spieth, Justin Thomas, who started this week at 2, actually went backwards to 3 with a tie for 6th finish. So
points are quadrupled, I think, right now.
Yeah.
For the playoffs.
Yeah.
So anybody who obviously wins is going to really shuffle that deck pretty aggressively.
And, of course, now the cut was the top 100.
Right.
And so 3 players moved from outside to inside the top 100 in the FedEx Cup standings, playing their way into this week's Dell Technology Championship at TPC Boston. Bubba Watson, who tied for 10th, went from 113th to 72nd, which, by the way, tied for 10th, pretty good. Bubba Watson starting to reemerge. He was starting to seem like maybe he was going to fade off into into oblivion the way he's been playing. Harold Varner III, with a tied for 20 finish, moved from 123rd to 91st, and David Lingmerth, tied for 29, narrowly got through, going from 103 to 91st.
Bubba made a big jump.
Yeah.
Bubba's got a good chance with another good week to keep going.
A couple of good weeks. He finished in the top 32 and plays them all.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be huge.
Wouldn't take much. It's happened.
Yep.
So it'll be the top 75 next at Vance. And
Right.
this is something I want to talk about right towards the end of the show. Well, maybe not near the end of the show, but two things. One, I don't know if playoffs is the right way to call these things. It's not a true playoff the way other sports are. We'll talk about the naming of it later, but just even the format of it all. So to survive, you need to be like these other guys just getting into the top 100. That doesn't make for compelling viewing. Johnson and Spieth squaring off one mano v mano. It's not like the loser goes home or anything. I like the idea of these playoffs. I just don't know how you can frame it in a way that makes sense to the American sports fan. I mean, the marquee matchup was just Johnson versus Spieth, but that really had nothing to do with the playoffs,
right,
other than reshuffling the top of the FedEx Cup standings, which would be the same if these were just regular tour events heading home. Right. And by that regard, the playoffs started this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
But didn't they start at the Wyndham? Because you had to make the top 125,
Yeah.
So it's kind of an arbitrary thing. I wonder if there's something the PGA Tour could do to make it more of a win or go home type of deal.
Match play, Tour Championship.
Yeah.
Knock them down this way for a couple weeks. Maybe not have 4 weeks.
Go to 64.
Maybe just have 3 weeks and you start at top 100. And you go down to 64 or something like that, and then maybe even the last 2 tournaments are match play. But at the least, I don't know if you could. I mean, you could do match play within one tournament for 64. They do it with the.
Well, see, I think that's too much though. 64 for match play. I think if you're going to go match play for the Tour Championship, then maybe it should be final 8. 8 guys make it to.
That'd be a better broadcast. I think they have trouble selling anything bigger, because you could get the 64th guy playing the 31st guy, and it's not a great match for TV. Hate to bring TV into it, but that's where the money comes in. So you want to see Dustin Johnson and Jordan Spieth,
right,
at least in the final 8. You don't want to get I can't think of any names.
You don't want to get Harold Varner III upsetting Dustin Johnson in the first round,
right?
Sure,
because that ruins everything, and that's one of the problems with the Accenture match play tournament with 64 guys.
Right. And you look at a normal tour event, the guy who wins doesn't necessarily always lead from day one.
Sure.
In fact, this year has been really just the opposite. So you could get Harold Varnick have a better score than Dustin Johnson on a Thursday, and Dustin still wins the event.
Well, for having the 4 days though, maybe you do it 32. Maybe just add 2 to the last one. Maybe you do the 2 tournaments instead of 3 before the Tour Championship, and you get down to the top 32. But then now it's bracket play, match play from there. 32. Yeah, I see what you guys are saying. Maybe there's a little more weighting for the top 8 or something. Maybe they don't necessarily. Maybe they get a bye or something like that. I don't know how you would do something along those lines, but to try and keep it. It's clean, though, with those 4 days, 32, 16, 8, 4. The final day, maybe you play the semis and the final.
I do think even at the 8 level, it would be very intriguing, because here you got the best 8 of all year long, of 36 or 7 events, right? Mm-hmm. So you've kind of weeded everybody out. If somebody did get hot and rose themselves up to number 8, like a Bubba Watson, he deserves to be there. He's playing well.
Sure. Yeah.
But to come in from 91st place and win a match play event would be not so intriguing or exciting.
Initially, at the least, right now, if they keep the same, stroke play format, maybe just eliminate one of these 4 and make it 3.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they're talking about doing with the restructuring of the schedule. The playoffs would end up being 3 weeks.
That'd be good.
But again, you can start paring down the field 5-6 weeks ago by saying that to qualify for the Wyndham, you need to be, or whatever tournament it would be, you need to be in the top 125. And then as each week successively goes on, it just gets a little bit lower. And honestly, I don't think guys would have a big problem with that, because once they're out, they can take a little vacation.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're not talking about guys trying to retain their cards at this point.
Right.
And you got guys, I think, this time of year, some of these guys are, you know, looking forward to their off season, looking ahead to it. So
Yeah, they get 3 months off, 4 months.
So
if you got to beat right now, you
Yeah.
might not play again until the first week of January, if you chose to.
Yeah.
So you haven't got to do some of that fall season stuff if you don't want to, or the silly season we have still in that December time frame, because there's a gap right between the first 7 events and there's a break.
Yep.
You know, so that month there, you know, Tiger's got an event and some others. You haven't got to play in those.
Right.
So you could go to Hawaii Christmas Day and spend 3 weeks over there. It's not a big deal.
Doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah, there's a lot of good options for these guys, I suppose. So, well, let's take a look here at the updated standings then, going forward. As I talked about, you got Dustin Johnson moving up to first place ahead of Jordan Spieth. Now, Spieth played 3 more events than DJ. You know,
DJ got hurt after Augusta.
Yep, and you wonder, you know, how much that derailed Johnson. He seems to be back to that form that he had heading into Augusta when he won his last 3 starts. So then Justin Thomas, Hideki Matsuyama missed the cut. It's kind of shocking.
Yeah.
John Rahm, you think he's going to be a first-round pick in your fantasy golf drafts next year?
Yes.
Solid.
Ricky Fowler, Brooks Koepka, and Daniel Berger. And then we'll scroll it on down here a little bit. Take a look.
Johnny Vegas.
Charlie Hoffman.
Yeah, and Hoffman's a guy who's
What's the
jockeying for that
Plays
President's
28
Cup.
events. Johnson played
Yeah.
17. He played 28. I'm glad to see him play that much. They all should.
Vegas played 26. Kisner's 25. 27 for Harmon.
Vegas is tied for third finish, pretty much solidified his international team
President's
berth
Cup.
for the President's Cup. Hoffman's battling it out with, I want to say Kevin Chappell now for the last guy in for points. You know, Paul Casey, 12th. Brian Harmon, not a name you'd expect to see, but he's had a really
win.
good season.
Yeah.
Remember, he won at West Virginia. Webb Simpson's a surprise that you haven't
They hit a
really seen much of him, but he's sneaking up there, isn't he?
quiet, solid year.
Yeah.
Most of those guys have wins, too. It's good to see.
Yeah, even here getting down to the top 25, you see a lot of these guys were winners this year. Everybody from
Look at that.
Stanley, Hadwin, Chappell, Leachman, Duffner all won this year. Stenson, Henley. Justin Rose did not, but only 15 events for Justin Rose, playing a lot in the Euro Tour. And Brendan Steele in the top 25. And then going down a little further, you see Jason Day at 29. Xander Schauffele looking pretty good for his rookie campaign. Charles Howell, the third solid season at 28. And, of course, there's Sergio, Billy Horschel, Wes Bryant, Patrick Reed. So, I mean, there's so much depth nowadays on the tour. These are all world-class players, obviously. You know, just continue to scroll down until we get to 75. You see Bryson DeChambeau. A lot of people thought his rookie campaign was kind of a disappointment, but there he is at 48 with a win.
Mm-hmm.
Charles Schwartzel, Luke List. I bet you Luke List was the guy who was the longest hitter this weekend. The one guy ahead of DJ. I can't say that for sure, but I bet it was him. He had 2 eagles in the final round Sunday. Let's get right down now to the cutoff point. Oh, there's old Lefty at 58.
Still hanging on.
Snedeker out with the injury, but he's there at 68.
How about Scott hanging on there at 73?
Yeah, originally was not going to play at TPC Boston, but he is now. Grand Delay had to withdraw for an injury this week, but he still barely qualifies for this week. Patrick Rogers, last man in. Or no, we go top 100. So this will be the number that they're looking for next week after Boston to be inside that top 75. And then down to the top 100. So Scott Stallings, you're the odd man out. at 101.
He moved up a spot. Still not enough.
And Brandon Gray's kind of a disappointing season.
Yeah, he's been a major champion hawk there for the last couple of years, but big threat.
So really what it comes down to, and this is to my point of this, the playoff nature of this thing not being so exciting is, boy, were we all on the edge of our seats to see if Scott Stalling could sneak into the TPC Boston event, or if Michael Kim could nab that last spot, or Cody Gribble. It just doesn't have that.
It's a very top-heavy competition.
It just doesn't have that same feel of other playoffs, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, where even the wild card game is exciting because the loser goes home and the winner moves on. Right. So,
match play it is.
Yeah, well.
Let's do it.
So, other thing that kind of happened this week that I don't think a lot of people even might have heard about was this week the PGA Tour and the European Tour both said, we're doing away with our no cell phone policy. Have at it. Obviously, no flashes, nothing to disrupt the players, no live streaming or shot-by-shot coverage, which I find that pretty hard to. That would be pretty hard to enforce.
Right.
To know if somebody's live streaming it, but obviously they wouldn't want someone from Golf Digest out there live streaming somebody's round. Somebody with a ton of followers. Right. But other than that, they encourage the cell phones for photos and videos to be shared on social media. And I think it's a good move, honestly, if you're trying to appeal to a younger crowd and get your product out there. Most companies and businesses want social sharing. They want as many likes and shares as they can get. So it's kind of counterintuitive for the PGA Tour to, ban that type of activity. And when I was at the Travelers, I had my cell phone out. And the only time somebody told me to put it away was when I took a picture of Rory McIlroy. One of his entourage actually told me, no cameras, please. But other than that, I had my camera out. Nobody really said anything. It's kind of like a don't ask, don't tell type of policy, I guess. But officially now, both tours have said, have at it. I don't know what you guys think.
If you don't have the, if it's on vibrate and you don't have the click noise going on the camera, I mean, it's not like the old cameras, the 35 millimeter, where they made that such a noise, and you can make your phone silent. I can't imagine why it would be as big an issue as it's been in the last few years. Before the smartphones, when you had the flip phone and the picture and it made that noise like a normal camera, then I could see it. But if it's been a while since that's happened, so I think they're a little behind on this. But it's a little overdue, but about time that they've come around on it.
What do you think, Brownie?
I agree. They're not going to stop it. People are going to sneak them in anyways. I saw it at Oak Hill in 13, and you weren't supposed to have them. People had them all over the place. So you might as well endear yourself to it and just try to control it. I think people want to take some pictures. I don't know what live streaming really means, so I don't get that one. But like you said, taking a picture of Rory McIlroy, what's the harm? Okay. That fan, if they didn't drop $100 for the ticket, they bought $400 worth for the week or something on those lines. So it's a major investment. Yeah. You go to an NFL football game and they're all got their cameras out, and it doesn't affect the game any.
Right.
Or the halftime show at the Super Bowl, they're all doing it. So I don't see the difference, especially like you said, they're quiet now.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody gets a cell phone call and the phone actually rings, then they should be somehow escorted to make sure that they fix it.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'd like to think that 99% of the population is going to adhere to the policies, and it's a good thing.
And just to answer your question about the live streaming, because there might be some of our viewers who might be wondering what that is. Anyways, basically you can take your phone, whether it's through Twitter, Periscope, or Facebook Live, but it's really easy just to click go live. And next thing you know, everybody who's following you sees what you're seeing live. So theoretically, if you had the battery life and I wanted to follow Paul Casey's full round and show the whole thing, I could do it. Just walk around with him with my phone up. And
a million people could watch.
Yeah, as many.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously that would it's like a Major League Baseball prohibits the
Copyright,
rebroadcast or
something
transmission
like
of this broadcast will be held strictly prohibited, all that stuff.
Is anybody live streaming us?
We're live streaming ourselves, yeah.
That's good.
But, well, just to give you an idea of, I didn't purchase the Mayweather McGregor fight this weekend, but when the fight got ready to start, I went on Twitter, and there was more than a handful of people who had purchased it that had their phone up to the TV. Right. So I watched the fight. Right. I didn't pay for it. It didn't have it on my big screen. I watched it on my phone, and I had to listen to the people in the room more so than the commentators. Sure. But and a couple of those streams got cut off midterm, but then I would just find somebody else. I really watched the whole 10-round fight, on my phone, laying in bed, without paying a dime for it. So
there's really no way they can, stop it from happening. Like you said, you can cut off one, and then another one will pop up. I did the same thing on YouTube. Just Mayweather McGregor live stream and popped up. Guy got knocked off. Another one comes up.
Yep.
It's the way it works now.
So the point being is, they can have this as their policy, but they're not going to be able to enforce it. And a good example would be, let's say I'm a patron at the British Open or any of the major championships, and I'm on the last hole, and I decide I want to go live, and I want to show almost like a different perspective or behind the scenes of the last hole and the award ceremony and everything like that. They're not going to know that I'm live streaming it. Right. They're going to have no idea.
Right.
Unless they saw it on the other end, but it's very difficult to police or track. So the one other side to them allowing cell phones like that is that you're going to have trouble policing the live streaming stuff. But obviously, anything coming from my camera or anybody's camera, a phone, is not going to be as good as the network coverage. So it's not really a competition, but it can show a different behind-the-scenes type of experience. Mm-hmm. If somebody's got their phone streaming live. So, but I don't know. Thought it was interesting that they've laxed that policy this week, both on the PGA and European Tour.
Wonder if Augusta will come around to that.
No, that's the only one. I doubt ever.
Yeah,
and that's fine. That's fine.
Never. Augusta's softened up on a few things over the years, so maybe 20 years from now. Yep. But there'll be some other technology that people will be worried about. So
one thing that happened over the week, not to change it, but you're right at that. But Billy Payne stuff. Yeah. He retired.
Yeah, changing in the guard.
Yeah,
at Augusta. So that's our next major coming up in April.
Maybe cell phone photos will be able to be used now.
Yeah, I wouldn't count on it.
I don't either.
So, found this pretty interesting too. The first thing I noticed when I started watching the final round coverage is that DJ wasn't putting with the Spider anymore. He was using, he removed his TaylorMade Spider Tour Black Mallet, replaced it with TaylorMade's TP Collection Juno blade, made from 303 stainless steel, the 35.75-inch Answer-style blade. Freed Johnson up and improved his feel, something that he noted was a key difference between the two putters. And Johnson said that I got a little bit more feel with the putter instead of the Spider I was using. I was getting a little too mechanical, a little bit too, I was worrying about too many things when I was putting instead of just putting. So, definitely took note of that because it seemed like everybody was going to the Spider. And here's a guy that went away from the Spider and won and made a really clutch putt on the last hole of regulation.
Seems like a lot of TaylorMade guys are bouncing around a little bit.
I'm a little surprised because he seemed to be improved his putting dramatically when he switched to the Spider. A little surprised at the change, but I think sometimes they want a different look or a different feel just to change things. That's all. I wouldn't be surprised to see him change back to that Spider maybe in a month or two or next season. But maybe just, sometimes you got to put that putter in the closet because I misbehaved and try something different. I saw Mr. Sinacropi with his old TP putter tonight. Yep. He's teaching a lesson to his even roll and some others. So
I also broke out my Ping Scottsdale putter. I have 4 putters in the trunk of my car right now, so
Three have misbehaved, obviously, and you have to go to timeout.
Yep.
So,
which one we use this weekend for the club championship, who knows? But to me, that's kind of it with putting. You got to go with what looks and feels right at the time.
Yes.
Instead of struggling with something that just isn't looking or feeling correct, just mix it up. It's not. Nothing's that dramatic of a difference when it comes to putting. You got a flat face, you just roll the ball, pick something that goes with it. So
he didn't change his stroke. He's putting the same way.
Right.
There might be a little different weight at the bottom or more weight at the top end, or heel-toe balance is a little different. That's all. And it gives a different roll off the ball. And I don't know, maybe because his back still hurts. He's standing differently than he was before. Who knows? But it works right now.
Yeah.
Right? So, but his putting stroke, he's not changing that to adjust to a putter.
Right.
So.
Now, he wasn't the only one to swap around some putters this week. Rory McIlroy, for the second straight year, made an equipment adjustment at the Northern Trust. Now, he won last year after making a change to his putter, and he went away from the TaylorMade TP Juno putter he started using at the Travelers Championship a few weeks ago to the TP Mullen. Hideki Matsuyama went back to his ace Scotty Cameron Newport 2 GSS putter. He had been using a center-shafted mallet putter. And Justin Rose run with a red TaylorMade TP Chaska putter. Lasted only 1 week. He was spotted with his previous TaylorMade Arc 1 Tour mallet that first went into play during this year's Masters. So these guys are all tinkering around with some different putters, and I think that kind of happens quite often. But it seems to me this week it happened more than most, and I was just surprised to not see DJ with the Spider, because it seemed everybody's going to the Spider. He's the first guy I saw go away from the Spider.
So it's interesting difference though here. Matsuyama missed the cut.
Right.
Yeah. So you got to wonder, was it the putter or not? All right. DJ's been playing well, putting well, changed putters. Rory McIlroy playing well, putting horribly, changed putters.
Yeah.
Okay. You wouldn't think DJ would have changed. You think Rory's still searching.
Yeah.
And his putting skills have really diminished.
Sure they have.
Awfully bad. He might have to go left-handed here pretty soon. But it just, I don't know, just the variability in where they are in the season in their changing equipment.
Yeah.
You'd think Rory would be searching, not DJ, or Matsuyama, for that matter. And he was number one, slipped a little bit because he missed the cut, and now he took a putter out, missed the cut, and I bet you that's gone.
Probably.
Now, what's he going to go back to, or two?
He's going to slide down the list.
And doesn't he know I got him in my fantasy league? What the heck's he doing?
Well, you can't win without putting well.
No doubt.
And so I think it becomes incredibly frustrating, and there's different extremes. Obviously, Rory McIlroy is at the most extreme level of his putting is just killing him.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Tied for 34th this week. So the easiest thing to do is to
change
putters. And it's more a mental thing, so that's why I think you see people having it happen too.
But this time last year, he caught fire again.
Yeah, he rolled. What a difference a year makes.
Ooh.
Rolled right through, won this one, won the next one.
It's actually painful to watch him putt to a certain degree because there's better than half a chance he's going to miss,
right,
in my mind.
Yeah.
You see those stats where they make 20 out of 20 inside 10 feet. Rory makes like 3 out of 10 feet, inside 10 feet.
Yeah.
And he hits the ball as good as anybody, but he's really searching.
Yeah, and it's scary. But I've played rounds of golf where I felt like I could make anything, and rounds of golf where I felt like I couldn't make anything.
Mm-hmm.
And when you feel like you can't make anything, it's not a fun game to play.
No.
Yeah, but those guys making everything's 28 putts and missing everything's 30 putts.
Yeah.
And now Rory's at like 34.
Right.
And that's a not for long career at 34. So.
Well, moving on to this week, it's a Monday finish, Labor Day finish at the Dell Technologies Championship at TPC Boston, which is a little something different. So, top 100 players in the FedEx Cup standings qualified for the Dell Technologies Championship, the second leg of the playoffs. Since 2003, this has been every Labor Day they played it, and it's the tour's only scheduled Monday finish. Of course, some events get pushed to Monday due to weather, but this is the only one that they schedule it. TPC Boston playing at 7,342 yards, par 71. You can watch it on TV Friday, 2:30 to 6:30 on the Golf Channel. Saturday, 3 o'clock to 6:30 on the Golf Channel. Sunday, 1 to 3 on the Golf Channel. Friday, Saturday, then Sunday, which is the first of the weekend, the first of the third round Sunday, 1 to 3 on the Golf Channel, 3 to 6 on NBC. CBS is done for the year. Monday, 11:30 to 1:30 on the Golf Channel, 1:30 to 6 on NBC. So Rory McIlroy's the reigning FedEx Cup champ, defends his title in Boston against a lineup currently of 97 entrants, among them PGA Tour season points leader as of last week, Hideki Matsuyama, and PGA Championship title holder Justin Thomas. Master champ Sergio Garcia sat out the first round of the playoffs. He'll be back. Adam Scott, he welcomed a son this past week, was a late addition to the field after initially indicating he'd sit out the first two events of the playoffs. Brant Snedeker and Scott Percy are both qualified for Boston, but have shut down their season with injuries. So, here we go. They pare it down now to 75. Is that exciting? You're going to be watching, what?
This tournament should be the last one in call it the Tour Championship. But this weekend is the great weekend to finish up the PGA Tour season. You don't have football yet.
Yeah.
They go 2 weeks into football season and they lose everybody. I mean,
Right.
Unless it's super dramatic, that Sunday of the Tour Championship you're clicking through when you're watching football.
Yeah.
This is the ideal weekend. Plus, you finish on a Monday, which is also unique. And I like the TPC of Boston course over all the other ones they've used in the FedEx Cup. East Lake is a great course, no doubt about it. But I think this TPC of Boston course, there's a lot of good risk reward, and they've had some good finishes at this tournament. So I think that if they were looking to adjust it a little bit more, make it 3 tournaments, make this the final weekend, and make this course the Tour Championship, or at least every now and then move it around so it's not just East Lake.
I would move it around the Tour Championship all the time to courses like Pebble Beach. I would actually use West Coast courses when you can to get the final round in prime time.
Sure.
But I would have the final event at courses like Oakmont or Pebble Beach or Pinehurst. Why not? But yeah, I agree. I would go one step further and move it. You do have college football this weekend as well.
Yeah, sure. But it's not on Sunday.
Right.
True. That's a good point. So if you did it this week, Sunday, Monday, you're really the only game in town.
Right.
And I think that is the plan for when the PGA's 2000 is it, when they going to move 2019 season. That's what we should see.
Yeah.
And it will be good for us because we won't have to do our podcast during Monday Night Football.
True. Good point.
So
hopefully there'll be, all the leaders will be at the top, and the final event where those 5 guys that are all, if they win the FedEx Cup, that'll make it more compelling. But it doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Well, yeah. What better day, having Monday on Labor Day?
I agree with you. That's a good thought. Totally agree.
Watching the final round, there's no other sports on.
Especially 4 o'clock in the afternoon on that day, and people are starting to get ready to go to school. There's not.
Yeah.
Vacations are wrapping up.
Yeah, they're home from wherever the Labor Day picnic they were at, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go PGA Tour. It's not too hard to figure out. Let's do this.
Maybe they're watching us right now. Live streaming.
Definitely are.
Yeah.
They're watching the live stream.
So
no doubt about it.
Who do you like this week? Who's your picks?
I'm gonna ride that Jordan Spieth train all the way to the finish.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
He's playing as good as anybody has. He didn't get it done in the major, but he's had some wins. The last major, I should say, he obviously got it done in one of them. But just like the way he's playing, he's had a great second half of the season, and hard to pull against the guy when he's playing that well. Although he's up against one of the other best guys to go. So
yeah, he seems to be the most that's going to be at the top.
Yeah,
in the top 2 or 3 when every tournament's over with. That's a good pick. Yeah. It's not my pick, but it's a good pick.
Who's your pick?
So I'm gonna go with Justin Thomas.
Yeah,
hard to argue too.
Yeah, what's he, number 10, I think. Or he finished 10th, right?
He's sixth.
Sixth.
Sixth right now in the standings.
Sixth, but I think he finished 10 over the weekend, something like that.
Yeah.
But just think the guy's got the game, obviously. I mean, all of our picks are going to be good picks.
Yeah.
You know, so.
We're talking about guys with 4 and 5 wins.
Yeah, it's his year, and he didn't change putters.
I like Spieth, but I'm going a different route. I'm going with a guy who seems like me, like sometimes in the playoffs, like last year with McIlroy, a guy, one of the big names, and 2 years ago with Spieth, who maybe weren't doing much for a stretch heading into the playoffs, reemerges. And so I'm going to go with Jason Day.
I knew it was coming.
Oh, here it is.
He played good. He played good
play well
this week for the first time in a while. And I think that maybe he might be ready to win again.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go with Jason Day.
He changed putters, too.
He went away from the Spider then.
He's got a white Spider, not the red one.
Oh, so he stuck with a Spider, just went with a different model.
I think they want to be able to show it on TV more. Shows up.
Yeah.
It's all marketing.
I haven't seen the white one yet.
Yeah.
It's too bulky for me. It's blade.
So,
good pick, though, Jim. He did play well, and I was watching, I was thinking, this guy is really falling off the mat.
Yeah.
Okay, and he had a nice week for a change.
Yeah. I think he's coming back to better health. I think he's a lot more banged up than he let on. He had some issues
physically and mentally.
Yeah, a lot going on with his mom.
Yep.
Yeah,
and a lot going on with his back and the thing. So I think he's finally in a better place. So you got to. It's hard to argue with him too.
Yeah.
It's been one of those ones in the last 3 years that we've talked about quite a bit. So
he's gone through a lot. You think about when he had the vertigo and he's falling down in the golf course. And that was very endearing to the public in a weird sense.
Yeah.
But he's won a lot of events in the last couple of years.
Sure.
Good story. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we got Dell this week in Boston. Then we got the BMW Championships at Conway Farms out near Chicago. The Tour Championship at East Lake Golf Course, September 21st through 24th. And then the President's Cup, September 28th. So competitive golf season as we enter September later this week will be complete by the end of the month. And always amazes me when we first look at that PGA Tour schedule. It just looks so long and so many events. Yeah. And, here we are, major season over into the playoffs. And I talked about it off the top, but I don't think the PGA Tour should call these the playoffs. I think they need to redefine it. So in a way that would make more sense. So whether you call it the PGA Tour Finals Series or something, I don't know. I think the word playoffs needs to come out because it's not. It's.
We'll just call it the Tour Championship.
The Tour Championship Series
down to 100, down to 70.
Or
just
the
leave
FedEx
it at
Cup.
Yeah.
You don't have to call it the FedEx Cup Playoffs, right? Because they're playing for the FedEx Cup.
Yeah.
Just call it the FedEx Cup.
The PGA Tour Final Series.
Right.
Like the NBA Finals, this is the PGA Tour Finals, or I don't know. It's so different than it used to be for years, and they have been successful in putting a season-ending series of events together that we've accepted. Like back in the day, the last event of the year. Can you remember what the last event used to be, Doug, in like the 1980s? And
well, it'd have to be on the West Coast. I would probably guess it'd be out in the Vegas area.
It was the fall finish. They called it the fall finish, and it was kind of like an afterthought almost.
Yeah. But they went till the end of October.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm thinking it has to be those events that are now still in October. They're part of next year now.
Yeah.
That Justin Timberlake one or those
Shriners
events. Shriners,
The one out in California.
One of them's a drugstore that sponsors something out that way. But that's my guess. I think Las Vegas, because Tiger won one out there, didn't he? Or did he get beat by somebody his first year out?
Yeah, he won one out there.
And that was because he didn't join the tour until after the U.S. Amateur.
Right.
Which would have been just about now.
Yeah.
And then, but he won an event out there. So I'm going to guess it was in Las Vegas. Would have been the end of the year.
But just so different now. And again, I think they're close. I just think they need to brand it differently, do a few things differently, tighten it up to 3 events. And I'd cut it down even sooner, honestly. Like, why the top 125? Why not make it to qualify for the PGA Tour Final Series or the playoffs or whatever you want to call it?
75.
60, 40. Why not?
Right.
Because you know what's going to happen is you're going to see more Jordan Spieth, Dustin Johnson matchups down the end.
Right.
If everybody knows that you need to be in the top 36 to play even in any of these playoffs, I think then all of a sudden it becomes a lot more interesting towards the end of the regular season.
Even if you went down, like you said, to 40, and those 40 are together for the 3 tournaments. You don't get knocked out. You're saying a final series, so
right.
You get down to, you're in the top 40, you're in the final 3 tournaments, or maybe the final 2, and then the last one they go down to 16, kind of like Tiger's tournament is.
Elimination,
yeah, and then at that one, either you do match play or you just keep it at 16 and you have the 4-round tournament, no cut, and just see who can.
Cumulative score over the whole thing, maybe?
Or that too. But like you said, get rid of so much of the, not dead weight. They've all had good years. If I'm 40 or 5th in PGA Tour this year, I'm pretty happy with that. But,
sure.
This is the be-all, end-all of your season. Make it a little more premium on getting into it.
Well, I agree. You're going to put more spotlight on the true stars.
Yep.
And then I think it would actually bolster these fall events, too, because a lot of these guys that were around 125 and 100 would be itching to play again and,
right.
Get a head start in the season. But, it's like the NCAA tournament. Talk about expanding, who gets in, who gets out. Nobody really cares that much about the 65th best team that gets cut. You argue about it after Selection Sunday for a couple days, then the tournament starts.
Right.
And I think it's the same thing with the PGA. I did not really care that Harold Varner III snuck in,
Right.
or even that Bubba.
Bubba, yeah.
It just doesn't excite me as much as watching Spieth and Thomas square off. But as far as the playoffs themselves go, that matchup really wasn't that big of a deal. I shouldn't say that because Johnson now has reclaimed the top spot in the FedEx Cup standings. But, if he has a bad week next week and Spieth wins, then Spieth will be back on top.
Right.
But so I would cut it down before the playoffs even start to a much tighter number.
Be interesting to see. We should take a look because we're talking about this. Let's take a look at where 40 was before the tournament, right?
Right.
And then just take those 40 and look and see how much they adjust each week moving forward for the next 3 weeks to see how many jumped in, how many got knocked out of that, or
right.
or maybe then it would prove maybe you just take the top 30 for the 3 weeks and go from there. Because you're talking about, hopefully, you're talking about the top 10 guys every week anyways.
Right.
And these guys on the fringe get in. He got in, great. Well, next week he's out.
Right.
He got in next week. Okay, well, he's out. So they don't even matter.
Yeah, and do they even deserve a chance to? They don't really have a chance to win the FedEx Cup at that point either.
Right.
So why are they still hanging around?
Exactly.
Yeah. A couple things. I think the 125 cut for those guys around that bubble, all they really cared about was getting to the 125 for next year.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so do they really want to play next week? They probably will, but that wasn't their number one goal. They wanted to have a job for next year.
Sure.
And the other challenge would be, as you shrink the field, and I think there's some good suggestions there, you got to make it so a guy like Sergio Garcia can't skip an event.
Yeah.
You're out if you skip, right? Or it's so painful that you can't overcome it. Right? I know Tiger did it one year and still won, stuff like that. But if you're going to have, call it playoffs, call it whatever you want, those best 40 or those best 30, they're in.
Yeah.
Or you're not replaced. You're out, and then that's it. There's no way you can skip a week and say, I'm tired.
Right.
So
3 weeks would help that too.
Yeah, sure would.
Just 3 tournaments.
Yeah, because you had to cut at 125 after the Wyndham and could have given him a break right now and played 3 weeks in a row.
Yep.
Or gone 2, skip 1.
Exactly.
Something like that. So, and still played Labor Day weekend.
We got a lot of good ideas here.
We're good.
Well, I do think they're good ideas. It's just every year since they've instituted this, I've kind of tried to wrap my head around it. The average sports fan doesn't really understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I think a smaller field would highlight those that really have had the great years and the top players, and you'd be able to feature more of the top players. So, And as far as a spectator, you might say, well, geez, who's going to want to go to a golf tournament that only has 30 or 40 people in it? But these are the top stars in the world of golf.
Go to a Ryder Cup, there's only 24.
Yeah.
If you're going to golf tournaments, I'm not going to watch. I'm not necessarily going to watch Luke List. I'm going to watch Dustin Johnson and Jordan Spieth, Rory McIlroy, Jason Day.
Yeah.
Every week, everybody's watching the same guys.
So at the end of the season, trim the fat.
Yeah.
It's
easier to watch them if you're there. That's
yes,
for
you're
sure.
right.
You can get
In front row seats.
You can get a good look at all of them.
Or always jump ahead.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, last topic for tonight's show. Steve Stricker basically said if Mickelson wants to play and feels like he can play, he's going to play. He's going to get that captain's pick for the President's Cup. But Mickelson's not one of the 12 best American players right now.
He's not.
And I don't think anybody can deny it.
No.
I think Mickelson's been on 24 straight teams. American Ryder Cup, President's Cup teams.
Right.
In 95, he was at Oak Hill. That was his first one.
And
So that's 22 years ago.
I can understand him not wanting to step away, but if this was a Ryder Cup, I think it would be more hotly debated.
Mm-hmm.
It's the President's Cup. We dominated over the internationals. If we lose, nobody cares as much as if it's a Ryder Cup. But, again, clearly not one of the top 12 best American golfers right now. Now, you can argue that the experience and the team, he's an elder statesman who will bring a lot of leadership to the table. But
Steve Stricker's playing better than him right now.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, if he was in form, I think
what I
we'd have
mean?
a different opinion.
Sure.
But his form is off.
Right.
So
The captain's playing better.
there's no doubt he brings some experience and all that kind of good stuff, but his form is not even close. I think it's a very suspect pick. When does that happen?
After this week.
Yeah.
After this week is when the President's Cup points
are done.
determined.
Well, the final team is over.
So
Then the captain's picks come in?
yeah, which I think there'll be 2.
Okay.
It'd be tough to pick him right now. I
I
mean,
bet he does, though.
it's tough.
Yeah, I
to
bet he does as well.
Tough to tell him no.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you are picking him more for the leadership and the camaraderie and all of that.
You can't play him in
aspect.
the alternate shot format. You only can play him in the 4-ball.
Yeah.
Of course, singles, you got no choice. But you've taken him out of half of the event. I don't see where you could pair him in the alternate shot.
Yeah.
There's no telling where you might hit a golf ball from.
True.
So,
Well, as I mentioned, we are kind of winding down the season here. Should be a great week at Boston. Just have to wonder, before we get out of here, what happens if Dustin Johnson doesn't fall down those stairs at Augusta? It seemed, he could have just had a season for all seasons.
Yeah, I think
playing great going into Augusta.
the middle of his year got.
Yep.
We missed out on a win or two, I think, in a couple big tournaments.
He got injured more than we realized or than they were revealing.
Sure.
Because they just talked about being like basically back spasms or something like that, right?
Yeah.
A couple treatments, he'd be fine.
He couldn't even swing.
It was
a club.
farther off.
Yeah.
So
Now, next week, also something different. Traditionally, we have our local club championship at Seneca Falls Country Club next weekend, and we usually have the winner up. So next week, I don't see why we wouldn't do it again if they're willing to come, whoever that might be. So we'll obviously recap Boston and preview Conway Farms, but have some time to talk about that final match at Seneca Falls. That's a 36-hole Labor Day final. So that'll be a long day by the time they get up here. But we'll see. Who knows? Maybe the last year it was you.
That's right.
Brownie, you're the defending champ, but
I
you're
thought
not
you'd be more
defending.
affirmative with that. It sounded like you were questioning.
Well,
me.
you're not defending. You're not defending this
So-
year.
So to all our viewers, if you're not doing anything Monday afternoon about 1 o'clock, come down to Seneca Falls Country Club and walk the golf course. You'll see some good golf, and there'll be, 50 to 100 spectators out there. It's really a nice culture that's continued on, and I've been there 45 years watching it and participating in it. But it's really neat to go out and watch it. And we have some good golf there.
Yeah,
We
and
really do.
It is a lot of fun, and you can walk, you can grab a golf cart. It's quite a scene to see so many people following the match out there, and it's it's a tradition that's gone back to 1943. 43, I think, might have been the first one.
Almost as long as the Masters.
Yeah, it really, and you can go to SenecaFallsCountryClub.com and see the list of champions, and it dates back to, I want to say, 1943. So it's not quite as long as the Open Championship, but locally it's probably got to be one of the longest running tournaments, and it who knows? I'll be competing. You won't be competing. You won't be defending. So
I'll be out there
officiating,
watching every move you make.
Yeah.
Okay. Looking forward to a different perspective, so we'll see how that goes. But I expect a good tournament. Got a qualifier on Saturday, that's always interesting.
Yep.
Because you got to get in it to win it. After that, it's match play, which we've already just said we like.
Brett's a big fan of.
So,
Absolutely.
And
in case you didn't know,
it's for those who don't compete, it's different than your average round of golf. Even though you're just playing one guy once it's all said and done, and when you get people out there watching, it's even more different. You don't want to make a fool of yourself.
No.
So, but we've got some good players there, and historically been a great event, and I expect it to be the same.
Yeah, me too. So hopefully I'm playing on Monday, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's always wide open. You never know what to expect. So thanks, everybody, for spending time with us this week on the GolfJ.com podcast. Be sure to connect with us online on Twitter at the GolfJ, Instagram at the _GolfJ, on Facebook at facebook.com/GolfJ. All of our episodes and the best of the wide world of golf on the web can be found at golfj.com. We'll be back next Monday night at 9 o'clock. Until then, friends, hit 'em long, not often.
golfj.com